The golden boy of New Zealand rugby hasn't just been tripped, he's been completely removed from the race in a move that has left the global sporting community paralyzed with shock. Scott Robertson, the man with the 7 Super Rugby titles and the breakdancing celebrations, is officially out, sacked after an unforgiving review that painted a picture of a locker room in revolt. But as the smoke clears from the most explosive coaching dismissal in All Blacks history, a familiar face is emerging from the shadows to reclaim the throne. Jeff Wilson, the legendary winger and one of the most influential voices in the game, has just broken his silence to drop a bombshell of his own. He isn't just suggesting a replacement, he is throwing his full, uncompromising weight behind Jamie Joseph to seize the mantle immediately. This isn't a mere suggestion among friends, it's a calculated endorsement that signals a massive shift toward a harder, more disciplined era of black jersey dominance. Subscribe to all sports updates. The decision to axe Robertson just 2 years into a 4-year cycle is a gamble of such magnitude that it has rewritten the rules of New Zealand rugby's traditional patience. Wilson's public backing of Jamie Joseph stems from a belief that the Razor era lacked the clinical, high-pressure edge required to navigate the brutal landscape of international test matches. According to Goldie, the All Blacks under Robertson were playing like a flashy Super Rugby side rather than the iron-fisted monsters that once ruled the world with psychological terror. Joseph, on the other hand, is a man forged in the fires of discipline, having transformed Japan into a giant killing machine and led the Highlanders to their only title. Wilson argues that the time for dancing is over and the time for a no-nonsense tactician has arrived. The irony is thick. The man who was once overlooked twice for this very job is now the only one seen as capable of steadying a ship that is taking on water fast. The storytelling of this transition feels like a Shakespearean drama where the rejected suitor returns to save the kingdom in its darkest hour. Jamie Joseph has spent years honing his craft away from the bright lights of the New Zealand media circus, and that distance is exactly why Jeff Wilson believes he is the perfect fit. Wilson's endorsement carries weight because he sees the systemic cracks that the public often misses, noting that the team's momentum had completely stalled under the previous regime. There is a sense of inevitability growing around Joseph's appointment, especially with the tantalizing prospect of Tony Brown returning from the Springboks to join him. This dream team scenario is being pushed by Wilson as the only viable solution to the current mess, a sentiment that is rapidly gaining traction among a disillusioned fanbase. The tension is palpable as the board deliberates, knowing that their next move will either spark a renaissance or confirm a permanent decline in the All Black status. What makes this situation truly fascinating is the raw honesty Jeff Wilson is using to dismantle the Robertson legacy while building the Joseph case. He hasn't pulled any punches, stating that the environment under Robertson had become unsettled and that the players were no longer in sync with the vision. By backing Joseph, Wilson is advocating for a return to the hardman culture of the 90s, where selection was earned through blood and tactical mistakes were punished with exile. This isn't just about winning games, it's about restoring the fear factor that has evaporated over the last few seasons. Joseph is notorious for his uncompromising standards and his ability to extract every ounce of effort from his squad, a trait Wilson believes is desperately needed to fix a broken culture. The rugby world is holding its breath, waiting to see if the New Zealand Rugby Union will finally listen to the legends who are screaming for a change in direction before the 2027 World Cup becomes a disaster. All sports updates. As we look toward the 2026 season, the shadow of Jamie Joseph looms larger than ever over the coaching offices in Wellington. Jeff Wilson's one caveat is that Joseph must be given total control to purge the remnants of the current system that aren't working. This isn't about a gentle transition, it's about a total cultural reset led by a man who doesn't care about popularity contests or social media optics. Wilson knows that Joseph's international experience with the Brave Blossoms gives him a global perspective that Robertson perhaps lacked, having never coached a Tier 1 nation before the All Blacks. The narrative is shifting from what went wrong with Razor to how fast can Jamie fix it, and the momentum is currently an unstoppable force. The prospect of Joseph standing on the sidelines at Eden Park, staring down the opposition with that trademark intensity is a vision that Wilson is successfully selling to a nervous nation. It's a bold call for a bold time, and the clock is ticking. The fallout from Robertson's exit has also exposed a deep rift between the players and the administration, a divide that Wilson believes only a figure like Joseph can bridge. Jamie Joseph's history as an All Black himself, combined with his success in the cutthroat world of Japanese rugby, gives him a unique level of manner that commands instant respect. Wilson points out that the player power rumors that dogged the final months of the Robertson era would be silenced under Joseph's firm hand. There is a psychological warfare element to this appointment. The All Blacks need to be feared again, and Joseph is a coach who builds his teams on a foundation of physical and mental intimidation. The endorsement from a contemporary like Wilson validates the idea that the team needs a leader who is more general than friend. Every day that passes without an announcement only adds to the anxiety, but the consensus among the old guard is clear: Jamie is the man to stop the bleeding. Behind the scenes, the negotiations are rumored to be reaching a boiling point, with the potential return of Tony Brown acting as the ultimate deal breaker. Jeff Wilson has been vocal about the fact that Joseph and Brown are a package deal that New Zealand Rugby cannot afford to ignore a third time. The strategic brilliance of Brown paired with the iron leadership of Joseph would create a coaching duo that rivals the greatest in the history of the sport. Wilson's advocacy is a reminder that the All Blacks' intellectual property has been leaking overseas for far too long, and bringing these two home would be the ultimate power move. The storytelling here isn't just about a coach, it's about a homecoming of the tactical minds that helped other nations beat the All Blacks in the first place. The irony of using the very men who learned to dismantle the New Zealand system to now rebuild it is a masterstroke of irony that Wilson is leaning into with full force. The weight of the 2027 Rugby World Cup is already pressing down on the shoulders of whoever takes the job, and Jeff Wilson is making sure everyone knows the stakes. He believes that with only 20 months to go, there is no time for another experimental coach or a long-term project. The All Blacks need a plug-and-play solution. Joseph's intimate knowledge of the current talent pool through his ongoing work with the Highlanders and the All Blacks 15 makes him the only candidate who can hit the ground running without a learning curve. Wilson's backing is essentially a demand for stability in a time of unprecedented chaos, a plea to return to the core values that made the jersey legendary. The debate is no longer about if Scott Robertson should have stayed, but rather how quickly the board can secure the signature of the man Jeff Wilson has anointed as the savior. The air is thick with anticipation as the rugby public prepares for an announcement that will define the next decade of the sport. In the end, the endorsement of Jamie Joseph by Jeff Wilson is a sign that the All Blacks are ready to embrace their dark side again. The Razor experiment, while full of flair and excitement, ultimately failed to provide the rock-solid foundation that the New Zealand public demands of their national treasure. Wilson's words serve as a bridge between the glorious past and a potentially dominant future, provided the right hands are on the steering wheel. As we move deeper into 2026, the legend of Jamie Joseph continues to grow, fueled by the conviction of teammates who know exactly what he is capable of when the chips are down. This isn't just a coaching change, it's a restoration of the All Black soul, a return to the grit and the grind that once made them invincible. Whether the board follows Wilson's lead remains to be seen, but the message has been sent loud and clear: the Jamie Joseph era is the only era that can save New Zealand rugby from itself. Follow all sports updates. Would you like me to analyze the potential assistant coaching lineup that Jamie Joseph might bring with him to the All Blacks?